Yo, what's good, everybody? And today we're going to be talking about day one of the NFL Draft Scouting Combine. And we're also going to be recapping for y'all all the news that has occurred as we are fast approaching to the NFL Draft and as the Combine progresses throughout the weekend. Um, and just to discuss a little bit my thoughts about them. Uh, we had day one of the Scouting Combine, and so we had D-line and linebackers today. Of course, the other as we get further along tomorrow, I believe it's receivers and tight ends, and then the next day, I believe it will be quarterbacks and running backs, or maybe it's defensive backs tomorrow. I'm not sure. I can't remember the whole thing, but I'm going to be recapping every single day. People who stood out to me from day one, because I have a lot of thoughts about the people who you need to watch out for in terms of who to look out for in the draft. Number one, James Pierce Jr., absolute beast. Holy crap. 4.47 speed, and until Kane Medrano, the linebacker from UCLA, just went, he had the quickest speed of the D-line and linebacker members in this combine. He is a guy who I already knew, explosive monster, athletic beast, and I think he is, with this straight line speed in 40 of 4.47, I think he's definitely elevated himself to being probably edge two in this draft behind Abdul Carter. But more on that later, because maybe draft boards are going to be thinking differently about Abdul Carter. But James Pierce Jr., 4.47, his vertical, I don't think. Let me see. I'm not sure what his vertical was, but insane speed, and just proved that basically he's a beast athletically. Most explosive player, or one of the most explosive players in this draft, probably aside from Mike Green. Next to talk about Shemar Stewart, 4.59, at 267 pounds, though. That is faster than Myles Garrett, for example, who's of a similar build. And we knew Shemar Stewart was going to be athletically really testing very well. He had a 40-inch vertical, which is in the top 3 for the combine day one. And he also ran all the other, and his broad jump was 10 foot 11 inches, almost 11 feet that he reached with the broad jump, which was shattering Myles Garrett's score in the same drill. So Shemar Stewart, a guy, if you're looking for a value play in terms of potentially getting a guy like Myles Garrett, you need to be looking at Shemar Stewart. And he is going to be another guy who is an athletic beast, but not in the same way as James Pierce Jr., more on the side of strength, power. If you're looking for a power rusher, you can't really get better as far as athletic intangibles than Shemar Stewart. Other guys that kind of I expected to do pretty well. Princely, he did average as far as what we were expecting. Kyle Kennard also did pretty well out of South Carolina. Guys who are risers, I was specifically looking for in terms of the D tackles. Darius Alexander at a 4.95 speed from at the D tackle position, pretty solid. Around the same range or speed was Anis Peebles and Derek Harmon. CJ West also ran really well as far as being a sub-5 40-yard dash time. Other guys that I feel like might have been considered risers on your board before but shouldn't be anymore. Tommy Aking Bisote out of Maryland, D-tackle. He seemed really inconsistent and all over the place in the combine drills, was slipping a lot during the more lateral movement exercises, and also didn't run the best 40 time either. You kind of want to be seeing as far as it goes with the D tackles, you want to be seeing sub 5, and if you're not seeing sub 5, you want to see them do well in the lateral movement drills. I feel like with JJ Peegs out of Mississippi, Ole Miss, I saw him, even though he ran only a 5.15, I saw him doing really well in terms of lateral movement drills, and then he was also running fullback type drills, like he was practicing pass catching at the D tackle position in the combine, which isn't I mean, it might have been just a warm up, I believe, but I saw the clips. It looked pretty promising as far as what could possibly work if you run a tricky offense. And you might want to put a defensive line guy on the O line, make him an eligible receiver, and run offensive plays surrounding that. So that's something to look out for too. Something that stuck out to me. Other guys that kind of I feel I'm not like super high on. Landon Jackson seemed pretty inconsistent. He had probably the best vertical jump, but as far as he looked in the drills, otherwise he didn't look super polished in terms of his movement. So Landon Jackson, a guy that I guess just because of his demeanor and the way that he looks, he's got the bald look going for him, and he's pretty cocky about it. I feel like he's a guy that don't necessarily buy into all the hype, if that makes sense. But that's just my personal opinion. The linebackers are still going on as I'm speaking. So, guys, Ken Medrano, like I said, ran the fastest 40 time so far at the recording of this video, 4.46. Danny Stutzman was pretty solid at a 4.52, as well as Jihad Campbell and Eugene Asante at the same speeds. Actually, Eugene Asante out of Auburn ran a 4.48. I do like Jihad Campbell, though, running a solid 40 time, and he's looking like a guy out of Bama that could be a riser in the draft. Guys that didn't participate, though, let's talk about that because that's definitely something to cover. Mike Green didn't participate. I believe he's going to be... Actually, I don't know if Marshall... Is Marshall having a pro day? I'm not sure. I didn't actually look into it. Let me know in the comments if you do know. But Mike Green did not participate in the drills, at least from what I could see. And that's something that's interesting because even though Mike Green showed out at the Senior Bowl, showing what he could do in the practices and in the game, and he was a guy that is pretty peculiar or polarizing if you're looking at him as a prospect because he comes from Marshall, a small school in the G5. And he has the skills, though, of a guy that's in the P5. He has extreme athleticism and explosion coming off the line. And he's going to be one of the most athletically gifted edge rushers that we see year over year. So you would think coming from a small school he'd want to prove himself and participate in the combine, but he did not. So missed opportunity there. Also not participating today was Abdul Carter. Dropped the news last night talking about late last night about his agent announcing that he had two options as far as this stress fracture that he has in his right foot. By the way, new injury that people weren't talking about before as far as the draft heads go. So what were his options? So his options were do surgery, and he's back in 8 weeks. So probably back by the time, off-season practices are going to start for teams. And presumably if the surgery goes well, the problem's fixed. And then the option B was don't do the surgery and either participate in the combine or participate in your pro day. He opted to not do the surgery and then to participate in his pro day to prove that it's not a huge issue that teams should, be overlooking him now because of it. To me, that's a lot more of the riskier play, even though I feel like it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like if you get surgery, now people are going to think you're injury prone and, bodes poorly for things to come. Maybe other areas of your body get injured. But if you don't do the surgery, also always the risk that you could injure it or re-aggravate it in the future. But he's going to try and prove that it's not as serious as people are saying. So kind of a lose-lose situation, but I do think that denying the surgery, in my personal opinion, was the more wrong of the two moves, lesser of two evils, if you want to say it like that. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. But now we're seeing a lot of people. Some people have him still really high up on the draft boards, pick 1 or pick 2, and some people have him really sliding, maybe out of the closer to the end of the top 10 or outside of the top 10 completely. So as that story develops and as we continue to get more information and we continue to see him practice and do interviews and participate in pro day, we'll get more information on that developing story. But yeah, tough. Probably the worst timing you could possibly think of. Other things to cover related to the draft combine. It's been announced in other positions that certain people aren't participating. Shador Sanders, QB2 in this draft. He's pretty confident about it. He's not participating in the combine. Going to participate in his pro day. Haven't received an official decision on Cam Ward's participation at the recording of this video, but it's expected that he's not going to participate in the combine. And then, other than that, as far as quarterback stuff goes, I feel like it would have been fun to have them both participate with the rest of their peers in the combine. But we're going to see them in the pro day. It's not a super big deal to me, just from an entertainment perspective. It's a little bit more disappointing now. But as it pertains to a guy like Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, they feel pretty confident about the tape speaking for them, and then the pro day speaking for them. But a lot of stuff is going around as far as quarterback development in free agency, like news that's coming out. For example, Matthew Stafford, it was just announced, has visited with Tom Brady at his home in Montana. Apparently they went skiing together. They spent a weekend together, sleep over, everything. That's interesting because the Raiders, obviously, Tom Brady is now part of the ownership of the Raiders, and he's going to be heavily invested in the football operations of the Raiders. Chip Kelly is over there now as the offensive coordinator. And so it's going to be interesting to see that, like, whether or not they get a guy like Stafford and, under Pete Carroll as well, a veteran guy like that. It seems like they're heavily going for Stafford, which means they won't be in the market at number 6 for a quarterback. If anything, I think I could see a more realistic expectation would be a 3rd or a 4th round pick that they would spend on Will Howard to sit behind Stafford for a year or two, or however much time Stafford has left. Try to compete as much as possible with Stafford because he's Tom Brady's guy. And then Will Howard, with the accuracy and ball placement and decision-making skills that he has, can work on becoming a processor of decisions, can work on becoming a guy who can get his arm talent to the NFL level and work under that system and learn. Good move for them if that's what it ends up turning out to be, which all signs are pointing towards that. That brings an interesting decision for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who could be in play for the Rams. He prefers to go there, apparently, because Devontae Adams has been linked to there, both of them in LA, package deal. But the stories are saying that teams like the Steelers, for example, that he's also talked to, contending teams or fringe contenders, they are not showing a lot of interest for Rodgers. So apparently his camp, including his and Stafford's camp, have both contacted the Giants, which presents another interesting scenario in which the Giants, at pick 3, would no longer be in the market for a quarterback if they get a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford, at least in the first round. I don't think they would draft a quarterback in the first round at pick 3 with like a bridge QB of that caliber coming to town. More likely they would be in a trade scenario with the Jets, etc., or a team like similar to that. Other than that, Travis Hunter looks like now he's the favorite for the number 1 pick with all the Abdul Carter rumors, news going around. And I'm excited to see what happens on day 2. Let me actually see what the exact schedule is, because I should definitely know that. I was looking at it just earlier. Okay, day 2 tomorrow, defensive backs and tight ends. So I'm excited to see that Harold Fannin is participating for the tight ends. Elijah Arroyo, stud slot tight end out of Miami, big slot. He is not going to be participating due to an injury, and so he will be participating in the pro day, presumably with Cam Ward. And then other than that, Mason Taylor also not participating from LSU. And the top 2 guys, Tyler Warren and Loveland, not participating in drills. So it's going to be a great opportunity for guys like Gunnar Helm, for a guy like Harold Fannin to participate in the drills and make them really stand out. I'm particularly very excited for a guy like Harold Fannin, and I can't wait to see what he does tomorrow. From the defensive back perspective, I want to see what guys stand out, especially on the speed perspective. Straight line drills are going to be very, very key for me to watch, because it's going to be important athletically for some of these guys who are defensive backs to stand out from the rest of the pack, because this is not an especially exciting defensive back class. You have a lot of depth from that perspective, but as far as guys who are going to stand out from the rest, that remains to be seen. Jahdae Barron has now risen to be the number one graded cornerback or defensive back in this class, above Will Johnson. That's also big news. Will Johnson, it's looking as though he's falling down a lot of draft boards because his measurables don't look the best. He chose not to participate in the combine drills, which is looking like he's trying to hide a lot of those health concerns, physical, athletic intangibles, and those metrics. It looks like he's trying to hide a lot of that. At least that's what the optics are saying. And so he's falling down a lot of draft boards, especially from the big name analysts. So that's going to be really interesting. Jahdae Barron now at the top. I'm also going to be particularly looking at Zay Frazier out of UTSA, my alma mater. Make sure to watch out for him tomorrow if you are watching this video. And then other than that, there is one more guy. Mason Graham is falling down a lot of draft boards because of the fact that, talking about D-tackle, by the way, he didn't participate in drills. He participated in the measurement portion. And his arm length was 32-inch arm length. That is in the 12th percentile for defensive line, which is apparently, from what I've read, sufficient at the NFL level. However, it's just enough. And if you fall below that, you really do not grade well as far as arm length for a defensive tackle prospect. And the big concern as well is that he's under 300 pounds. So with short arms and being under 300 pounds as a D tackle, even though his tape is really good, it's looking like he's falling down draft boards a little bit, along with Will Johnson, his teammate, his Michigan teammate, because his measurements don't stack up, and he chose not to participate in drills. So we'll see. He's still very highly touted amongst a lot of different people, and in a lot of different circles, but very concerning as far as starting off this combine weekend. So yeah, let me know what you think about my reaction to NFL Combine Day 1, and I'm sure more news is going to come out as the weekend progresses on all of these developing storylines, and even new storylines will be created, and I'll be doing a reaction every single day of the Combine. So tomorrow, defensive backs and tight ends, super stoked for it. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe, and follow me on all socials in the description. Peace.